The staff room at Rigoden Magic Academy is absolutely buzzing right now because some seriously shocking exam results just dropped. Werkner honestly can't believe his eyes when he sees Will's exam papers. Every single one of them scored a perfect 100. Not even Lehana managed to score a perfect 100, which is exactly why Edward is totally mind-blown that the student everyone thought was talentless just set a brand new record. Werkner looks so incredibly proud, even though he knows deep down that the final exams aren't truly over just yet. Super curious about what Will is up to, Werkner immediately checks in on him using his crystal ball. It turns out Will is busy studying with Colette and Rusty. The poor guy looks absolutely exhausted from pulling an all-nighter. Even though he literally just fought Norberus yesterday, Will is still pushing himself to the absolute limit just to catch up on the remaining credits he needs. Will feels so grateful for his friend's help, especially since he already managed to snag 5 extra credits from Edward's remedial class. Meanwhile, Rusty is having a blast teasing Colette about Will's white hair, making her blush furiously and get all flustered. Over in another spot, Julius and Shin get called in by the headmaster to receive some well-deserved praise for taking down the floor guardian. Instead of being proud, Julius actually complains about it. He feels like he didn't even need to bother fighting since he's so confident he can climb the tower without any help. Annoyed by his attitude, Shin immediately mocks Julius, calling his ice magic totally useless. Naturally, this leads to the two of them getting into a huge shouting match. Shin and Julius are back at it again, literally bumping foreheads and glaring daggers at each other, right in the middle of all the tension. Headmaster Cauldron suddenly pops up and starts teasing them. Elsewhere, Wignall and Lehana are strolling down a white-pillared corridor. They are feeling so relieved that their practical exam is finally over after successfully defeating an evil Grand Duke Incid. In the cave, with a faint smile, Wignall notes how Lehana's whole vibe has gotten so much softer lately. On the flip side, Lehana realizes that Wignall looks way more relaxed now and isn't nearly as stiff as he used to be. They both agree that this awesome change is all thanks to Will's relentless determination. They fondly remember how Will taught them that fear and failure can actually be turned into the courage to keep moving forward. Looking at the tower in the distance, they just know Will is out there grinding hard for his final exam. Plus, the guy's insane work ethic is finally starting to get recognized, even by the elves. Later that night, Colette drops by the library to bring some food, but when she gets there, she finds Will already fast asleep on a desk, completely buried under stacks of books and papers. Colette gently drapes a cloak over Will's shoulders to keep him warm. She then leans in close to look at his face, which seems so peaceful despite how exhausted he clearly. Suddenly, Rusty sneaks up right behind Colette, scaring her so badly she literally jumps back. Colette looks totally panicked about getting caught leaning her face so close to a sleeping Will. Rusty flashes a massive grin and starts teasing Colette until her face turns bright red. She nervously tries to defend herself when Rusty accuses her of trying to sneak a kiss. Honestly, it really breaks Colette's heart to see Will constantly pushing himself until he is beaten black and blue just for his dream. With a melancholic look in her eyes, she softly strokes his hair. Up in the tower corridors, Elferia crosses paths with Eleanor, who instantly starts throwing shade at her. But Elferia stays completely chill and just fires back by mocking Eleanor's loss in their previous magic duel. Things get even more chaotic when Zio casually strolls in and tells them to get out of his way, instead of backing down, these legendary mages end up in a hilarious, full-blown shouting match. Basking in the glow of the crescent moon symbol in the night sky, they start chatting about the upcoming Terminalia ceremony. They can't help but wonder what kind of incredible new students will make the cut at the end of the year. The day of the final exam finally arrives in the Great Hall. All the students sitting at the long desks are super tense because instructor Edward Serpents himself has stepped in to proctor the test. Edward drops an announcement that completely shocks the entire room. He declares that he will only be asking one single question to determine the fate of all their remaining exam credits. With just one flick of his wand, hundreds of exam papers go flying through the air across the hall. The sheets land perfectly on every student's desk, so the test can get started right away. The hall goes dead silent the second the students read the question on their papers. They are asked to provide a deep, personal explanation of what magic truly means to them. The students, including Shin and Wignall, start racking their brains. Pens in hand, they get ready to pour their entire magic activation process into words on the exam paper. Wignall points out that only a true mage or an elf could possibly answer a question like that. Lehana realizes it is practically impossible for an ordinary person to pull it off. Walshan immediately starts worrying about what this means for Will. Will feels like all his studying was totally useless because the answer to this question isn't written in any textbook. For someone with zero magic talent like him, a question that relies purely on magical instinct feels completely impossible to answer. Right in the middle of his panic, Will suddenly remembers the promise he made with Elfaria. Even though he feels backed into a corner, Will forces himself to keep writing his answer. He tries his best to describe what magic means, and his eyes are power that is incredibly beautiful, yet can also feel so utterly cruel. Meanwhile, Werkner is absolutely losing it at Edward and the faculty office. He feels like the exam question is completely unreasonable and seems deliberately designed just to make Will fail. Edward stubbornly sticks to his belief that a sword can never be equal to magic. In the end, Will's name is officially added to the list of students who failed to make it into the tower. The decision is final, and Will Surfert's name is tragically stamped right onto the document of failing students. After being declared a failure, Will can only lie limply on the floor, covering his eyes. He feels absolutely crushed knowing that his dream of reaching the tower is now out of reach. While Will is spacing out in the garden, Rusty comes over to let him know that his protective goggles are finally fixed. Will takes the chance to vent all his frustration about Edward giving them such an impossible question. Will clenches his fists tightly, completely frustrated because he feels like he is just being toyed with by the whole situation. Will screams out in frustration and keeps apologizing to Elfie for failing her. Seeing him like this, Rusty immediately hugs Will from behind to try and comfort his best friend. Back at the dorms, Colette and the gang are frantically searching for Will, who has completely vanished. But then Julius suddenly shows up and mocks Will, calling him a total loser who chose to run away. Hearing that insult, Wignall instantly points his magic wand right at Julius. He warns Julius to take back his words immediately and stop trash-talking their friend. Shin clearly isn't happy about the whole situation either. As far as he is concerned, he is the one who is supposed to defeat Will directly, not just watch him disappear into despair like this. Werkner steps in to break up the students' argument. He tells them to go out and enjoy the New Year's Eve festival, promising that he will go look for Will himself. The New Year's Eve celebration finally kicks off with a super spectacular fireworks display. The vibe across the entire city instantly turns lively as this annual ceremony begins. Claire, emerge from the tower, is on duty as the host for the festival. Even so, she can't help but complain a bit about having to work while everyone else is out enjoying the holiday. Instead of focusing on her job, Claire actually uses her magic orb to vent her feelings. She feels pretty bummed out watching all the happy families in the crowd, while she is stuck feeling lonely. Claire also grumbles about how her co-workers, Werkner and Ed, chose to look after their students instead of coming to hang out with her at the festival tonight. The second she realizes her personal rant is being broadcast to the whole world, Claire immediately switches gears. She quickly hypes up the crowd to watch the grand finale preparations for Terminalia. Claire throws her arms wide open, summoning a massive pillar of blue light and a giant magic circle that beautifully decorates the night sky above the city. Holding an old book, a little kid looks at illustrations of the past when humanity lived in darkness and was being destroyed by the invaders from the sky. The history books tell the epic tale of how the ancestor Mercedes and the 5 great mages successfully sealed the sky 500 years ago to protect the world. Somewhere else, Iris Churchill notes that the magical barrier can only last for a single year, meaning they absolutely cannot afford to fail in setting up the new one. Raj quickly reports that the situation on both the ground and in the air looks totally secure, with 0 suspicious magical reactions showing up on the monitors. As the giant clock hands in the sky approach their peak, Lord Kerriot, who is already prepped in his seat, immediately orders the Barrier Renewal Festival to begin. The 5 Magia Vander finally make their grand appearance, standing side by side atop the high tower, ready to fulfill their duty of protecting the sky. The entire city erupts into cheers, welcoming the Magia Vander as they hover above the settlements to urgently renew the world's protection. Claire encourages everyone to join in on the action by raising their magic wands, allowing their combined energy to help support the sky together. The Magia Vander then summon their legendary weapons, from the Crown of Fire and the Sphere of Water to the Altar of Earth, all materializing from glorious magic circles. They focus all their incredible power into a single point in the sky to unleash the massive-scale magic known as Vandes Terminalia. The colossal magic sphere that forms in the sky finally bursts, scattering breathtaking particles of light all over the city to signal their success. The sky is instantly filled with fireworks and hundreds of flying lanterns, marking the arrival of a peaceful new year for all the citizens. But the vibe takes a dark turn when a deep purple magic pattern suddenly appears in the sky, and the main tower weirdly displays a terrifying, smiling face. Raj immediately orders his team to track down the cause of the anomaly, especially after the purple portal starts sucking up all the lanterns in the sky. Right out of that purple vortex, a black, winged creature with glowing red eyes emerges and starts dive-bombing straight toward the ground. Hundreds of other winged monsters pour out right behind it and immediately attack the city, smashing buildings to pieces and sending the terrified citizens running for their lives. In the midst of all this chaos, 2 mysterious figures watch from the rooftops, fully aware that the Magia Vander have just burned through a massive amount of their magic energy. Seeing that the Protector Mages are currently in such a weakened state, this masked figure casually declares that the hellish party is only just getting started. Somewhere else, Will and Rusty are totally caught off guard when they spot a purple magic circle in the sky, looking exactly like the one they saw back in the 11th stratum. The city instantly descends into pure chaos as vicious monsters suddenly spawn, attacking the terrified citizens who are running for their lives. Raj is completely baffled as to how monsters from the deep stratum could possibly show up on the surface, but Claire doesn't hesitate and immediately jumps into action. Claire quickly casts the Kerados Guardianus spell, summoning massive mechanical guardians to protect the city that's already starting to go up in flames. The Guardians charge right into the fight, while Raj and his squad prep a massive fire attack to wipe those monsters off the map completely. Shin and Wignall can only watch from a distance as the tower's Grand Mages step in to handle the absolute mess unfolding before them. Furious at seeing the capital being torn apart, Raj orders his troops to hunt down the mastermind behind this sudden monster invasion. Shockingly, one of the monsters actually survives the intense fire attack, leaving Raj stunned and forcing him to gear up for another strike. When the fire dragon attack is unleashed, the monster casually slices right through the magic. Someone screams a warning for Raj to get out of there immediately. Claire realizes with horror that her magic has been completely neutralized, and all her guardians are shredded to pieces by the weird sword wielded by that purple aura monster. A massive explosion rocks the area as the white monster attacks Claire with its Magaban sword, putting her in a seriously tight spot. Over at Rigodan Magic Academy, Headmistress Cauldron watches the city's situation go from bad to worse, suddenly remembering the Magaban weapons that a group of youths had brought in before. After putting the pieces together, Cauldron is absolutely certain that the culprits are the Grand Praxis group, and they've planned this attack flawlessly. This ambush was perfectly timed during the Terminalia ritual, meaning Cauldron has to think very carefully before sending any backup to the city. Out of nowhere, a white monster spawns right inside the academy. Cauldron instantly realizes the city riot is just a giant decoy to leave their main tower completely unguarded. The Magia Vander, including Elferia and Zio, are currently super vulnerable since their magical energy is heavily drained from maintaining the giant barrier during Terminalia. Logwell tries to ask for permission to go help the citizens, but Eren snaps at him and orders him to stay exactly where he is. Eren strictly forbids anyone from leaving the tower, while Zio just hangs back waiting for orders, keeping a close eye on the situation from above. The terrifying reality is that if even one of them falls and the barrier shatters, the Sky Invaders will descend and burn the entire world to ashes. Meanwhile, Mars and Headless are chilling on a balcony, just waiting for the Magia Vander to show up. They're literally using the innocent civilians as bait. Iris is absolutely heartbroken seeing the people in such danger, so she starts weaving through the ruined city streets to rescue them. She tries to save two little kids using her light magic, but the monster is ridiculously strong and just swats her attack away with its bare hands. Just in time, Will swoops in to block the monster's strike. With his eyes glowing a fierce purple, he stands tall in front of the citizens to shield them. Will can't help but feel how incredibly unfair this world is to him, and he just can't hide the deep-seated hatred brewing in his heart anymore. He lets out a massive battle cry, hyping himself up to face this absolute nightmare of a situation. Moving at blinding speed, Will slashes through a skeleton monster right in the middle of the roaring flames, crash landing inside a building right after an explosion goes off. Even though his hands are visibly shaking from fear, Will stands his ground. He refuses to let anyone else become a victim today. When a giant monster threatens the crowd, Will launches himself into an aerial assault, making Rosti scream his name in pure panic. Rosti quickly barks out orders to focus their fire on the armed monsters, while he himself unleashes his ice magic, Cristo Wreath. Will keeps delivering heavy slashes against the beast, and Iris is completely convinced that he is the only one who can take down these Magaban monsters. However, she also realizes there's no way Will can win this alone, especially with the insane number of enemies swarming the city. Through a magical projection, Eren grants Iris full authority to mobilize the dwarf troops to put an end to this absolute madness. Acting as the Watcher, Iris immediately broadcasts an order for all mages and dwarves to join forces and eradicate every last monster in the city. Amidst the sheer panic, Werkner actually falls to his knees, begging the dwarves to hurry up and save them. Even though they grumble about it at first, a squad of dwarves led by Donan and a green bandana-wearing woman finally charges into the fray to help. Edward also steps up, commanding the students to join the fight and protect the citizens, no matter how dire the situation gets. Lyanna shows off her badass bravery by unleashing her lightning magic, Lissold Secunda, leaving the other students totally awestruck by her raw power. Unfortunately, Lyanna quickly realizes just how broken the monster is. Her magic attacks literally vanish into thin air the second they get close to its weapon. After analyzing the battlefield, Lyanna teams up with Colette to brainstorm a strategy, desperately looking for a blind spot to take the monster down. Wignall jumps in to assist, casting his elf's ringhole magic to summon giant wooden roots from the ground and entangle the monster's body. She notices that the enemy's movements actually slow down while it's erasing magic, so he immediately calls for a relentless barrage of attacks. Julius and Wignall absolutely shower the monster with different elemental spells to back it into a corner, right before Shin gives his friends the final signal. Colette drops a massive statue straight onto the monster. Since it's a purely physical object with zero magical energy, the enemy can't neutralize it at all. The crushing blow successfully destroys the beast, making Wignall realize that physical objects are the ultimate counter to the enemy's anti-magic abilities. Lyanna immediately orders the mages to start hurling stone rubble, while a whole squad of broom-riding mages takes to the skies above the city. Watching from above, Claire notes that this year's Tower Climber candidates are actually pretty competent. Without wasting time, she orders the Earth Mages to launch their assault. Down on the streets, Claire informs the Fire Mages that backup from the dwarf troops is on the way. Even though he hates relying on them, Rog knows they literally have no other choice right now. The dwarf squad finally charges in, swinging their massive axes. They are dead set on not letting this Magiavander territory fall into the hands of these monsters. Meanwhile, up on the rooftops, Mars and Headless are monitoring the chaos. They're feeling a bit annoyed that their plan is getting messy just because they accidentally bumped into the expedition team. It turns out one of their weapons was actually confiscated by Eren and Donan earlier. To them, it's just a stupid, unlucky coincidence that's causing a major headache. The shadowy figure realizes the mages and dwarves are reacting so fast simply because the intel on their secret weapons had already leaked. They were forced to push their plans forward before they could even mass-produce the weapons, if they had managed to keep it a secret. They're positive their surprise attack would have been way more devastating. While observing the city's state, the shadowy figure spots Will fighting down below and senses that he's another annoying factor messing up their grand scheme. Since things are getting pretty desperate, they decide to unleash their special surprise right now, even if it's a bit ahead of schedule. Right in the heart of the burning city, Will is fighting tooth and nail, swinging his sword to hold off the rampaging skeleton monsters. Suddenly, a giant magic gate rips open, and a colossal monster steps out, locking its deadly gaze straight onto Will. Will is momentarily paralyzed by the sheer size of the beast, but snaps out of it when he's sent flying by a brutal swipe from its massive hand. Rosti is left speechless by the sheer destruction, especially when a multi-armed blue monster shows up and starts leveling the surrounding buildings like they're nothing. Will is looking completely overwhelmed and heavily injured from that brutal surprise attack. On the flip side, deep inside a cave, Finn is seen interrogating a cloaked guy about the secret weapons that were specifically crafted to kill mages. Finn demands the guy to talk, but the man just laughs in his face, mocking him by saying their only job was to lure Finn deep into the dungeon. The guy also drops the bomb that the surface is probably already in ruins, instantly filling Finn with intense dread about what's happening up there. Right after that, we get a quick breakdown of the Magadan swords and the gate magic, which are the main keys to the enemy's massive invasion this time round. Cutting back to the fight, Will lands on his feet, panting heavily. He realizes that the physical strength of the monster in front of him is just completely absurd. Claire, watching from afar, immediately recognizes the beast as an insanely dangerous legendary monster from the 40th floor. Headless and Mars then casually mention that they lost 50 of their own men just trying to force that savage beast into the magic gate. Will keeps desperately trying to dodge, but just the shockwave from the monster's attacks is enough to send him flying like a piece of paper in the wind. Just as Will thinks about retreating, he spots a terrified Raj Holland right in the path of the monster's incoming deadly strike. Will actually manages to block the attack to save his comrade, but he gets absolutely battered in the process, crashing into a roof that instantly collapses under him. Right when the monster is about to finish Will off, a massive axe suddenly slams down, and Donnan appears just in the nick of time to save his life. The dwarf troops quickly surround the beast, while Donnan tells the young boy to stay put and let them handle the monstrous threat. Shin immediately steps up, coordinating a synchronized magical bombardment to crush the monster alongside the heavy assault from the dwarf warriors. The monster looks totally helpless now, but the two mysterious figures watching from the roof are actually smirking, feeling like everything is going exactly according to plan. Suddenly, the monster's body starts pulsating, emitting a sinister purple aura. This makes Julius realize with dread that they've all walked right into a massive trap. Headless then explains that the monster's unique ability is to absorb all the residual magic energy in the area to massively buff itself up. Mars adds that this freak of nature can even cannibalize its own kind to become exponentially stronger. Claire panics and screams for them to stop the absorption, but Donnan stubbornly orders his troops to charge in and attack anyway. Turns out, the attack is completely useless. Mars just mocks them, telling everyone to witness the birth of a true nightmare. Pillars of purple energy start erupting everywhere, rendering the dwarf troops completely powerless, while Donnan can only stand there, frozen in shock. Will and Donnan are absolutely floored when the energy condenses into a terrifying purple-winged demon right in the middle of the raging inferno. The monster instantly goes berserk, using its bladed wings to slice through buildings and blasting the dwarf troops back with raw energy shots. Will finally pieces it together. The enemy intentionally sacrificed a ton of monsters just to power up their ultimate trump card, which is immune to both magic and physical attacks. Headless snaps his fingers, officially marking the awakening of the Magiavander killer, ready to slaughter absolutely anyone in its path. Will starts feeling a deep sense of despair as both mages and dwarves are completely powerless against this beast. He knows they need some kind of miracle power to stop this madness. In the middle of this critical situation, Rosti screams for Will to ready his sword while he frantically casts an ice shield spell, but out of nowhere, the monster teleports right behind Rosti and slashes him down, sending blood splattering everywhere. With tears streaming down his face, Will instantly dashes and leaps at the monster, launching a completely blind, rage-fueled counterattack. Will relentlessly slashes at the monster's body at lightning speed, even though he's already heavily wounded and completely covered in blood by the time he lands. Meanwhile, a dying Rosti tells his black cat to go find their friends, promising that he will protect Will to the very bitter end. The moment his cat runs off, Rosti forces himself back to his feet, his battered body standing tall amidst the dust. He's fully resolved to see his goal through. The brutal fight drags on, but Will feels like every single plan and all the sword skills he's ever learned are completely useless right now. Memories of their school days together keep flashing through Will's mind, making him feel even more helpless against this harsh, crushing reality. Will gets smashed into a wall and starts crying over his failure, while the monster lets out a deafening roar, charging up a deadly purple attack. In the midst of a blinding light, Rosti suddenly appears right in front of Will, giving him a gentle smile and promising that he'll always be by his side. Slowly, Rosti's body begins to fade into beautiful blue particles of light, getting absorbed right into the monster's massive energy core. After flashing back to a happy memory of them eating together, Will finally drops to his knees, screaming his lungs out in pure agony before everything fades to black.